Hey everyone, thanks for joining the Notable live stream. I'm here today with Kyle Kelly to introduce Genai. So if you have any question, you can ask them either in the channel on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I will make sure we answer those questions during the live stream today. Kyle, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me, Pierre. Okay, so I'm going to show off Genai, which is an IPython extension that'll work in any of the Jupyter Notebook front ends. That includes Notable, the platform that we work on. So to get yourself started, you just need to pip install Genai and load extension Genai. The instructions are also in the GitHub repo. We'll provide a link to that in the description below, as well as the chat. So I've already ran this and loaded it, this is just going to install Genai within the notebook, and then make sure to load the extension. So I'm just going to collapse this output here. So this got born out of wanting to find more ways that we could derive context from like a user's notebook experience and try to shape it so that you could get more iterative feedback even when you're hitting exceptions. I think we've seen a lot of code completion out of GitHub Copilot, out of directly working with ChatGPT, and just kind of generally a lot of tools that are getting built in this space. So I thought it would be really cool if we could work off of hitting an exception. So I'm going to load a data frame. And this data frame is from City of Berkeley. They have a bunch of open data sets. And this is 311 calls that they have. So I've already run these. We've got this one, and we're going to have the data frame here shown in the Data Explorer. And then I noticed there's a bunch of location data that's missing over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop those two. Oh, but I hit an error. And so what immediately happens is Genai will look and start looking at your traceback and your exception, and then send that back to ChatGPT's the chat completion endpoint from OpenAI, so we can figure out, kind of debug, like, oh, what's wrong, what's different, and Pandas has actually changed their interface here. So we're just going to substitute that in, run it again, and we get our map. And so it's basically just like that. Like anytime you want to write something and you're not sure, or you even have it a little bit wrong, it'll try to assist you if you hit an exception. So let's look back at this. I think what's kind of crazy, because of the translation layer, if I wanted to do something where, let's say I just started typing out df where case is open. Now, obviously, this is not valid syntax, but let's try it. Syntax in the code is incorrect. Suspect you're trying to filter rows in a data frame based on some condition. Here's the correct syntax. I actually know this one's going to fail too, but let's try it. Error message indicated that the case column does not exist in the data frame. Okay, here's an example of how to create a column named case. Now, the thing is, of course, with these tools, is they're going to respond to you with stuff. They don't have enough context. They don't know that actually you don't have you don't have these columns on it. So let's look back at this. We've got df of case status, and it's closed. So I can look at those. So we're going to have case status. It's closed. Let's run that. And that pulls up all of where the case status is closed. And so this gives this kind of like tight bit of integration feedback where you get an error, and you're not just looking at the traceback that's coming back. You're getting that traceback and some context that ChatGPT thinks would be really useful for you to keep iterating with. So let's say that I wanted a little bit more help. There's another part that's built into ChatGPT where it's going to pull up context of previous executions and inputs. And I can actually run this %% assist magic and say, calculate the time to close tickets. Let's see, calculate the time that tickets were open. I'm curious what it'll say here. So this is going to send back previous inputs and outputs, so it has context of what the data frame is, what's available, and it spits back this, which actually we can convert this to Markdown, and then df time to close equals df of date closed minus df of date opened. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to work actually, because some of the tickets are still open, but I'm just going to fly blind here and let it run. So some of these aren't going to work out. Persistent assist. Let's say if the ticket is still closed, is still open, then the time to close should be up to today. I probably want to change the variable name for that then. These silly messages, those are from Genai, the package itself. All right. Date closed. Oh, that's interesting. So it's saying we're just going to fill in for today, which I suppose could be right in the sense because of how we're about to use it. Cannot subtract date time array from ND array. I did convert those before, though. Well, let's see if I just do that there. How will that work? That worked just fine. So let's do an assist. And let's say create a box plot of per category by the time to close. Let's just give that a shot. Sure. Here's what they think. I'm gonna fly blind. I know from OpenAI's live stream this week, they said don't just plug the code directly in, but I don't see anything crazy here, so I'm gonna give it a shot. Oh, look at this. The errors caused trying to plot a box plot of time to close grouped by request category. This data type time to close column should be numeric data time. Oh, interesting, because it was how long it took. Huh. So what should we change? So it says, oh, we should do total seconds equals df of time to close. Well, yeah, let's give that a shot. I see. And it's going between there and there. Oh, we'll give it a shot. What are we going to have? There we go. Okay, so we've got this box plot grouped by the request category. And notice I described in natural language, create a box plot per category by the time to close. And it knew that I probably meant the request category. There's actually two things that were named category here: is request category and request subcategory. And it pretty well figured out that I probably meant this top level category that it's pulling out here as request category to create the labels for it and go ahead and plot it. And I was like, that's great. Like this is fit to ship. Yeah, so that's kind of the basic intro. So I don't quite know exactly like what data I'm going to pull out, how I'm going to work with it, but I can kind of describe like, well, here's what I want to see out of this data. What do I want to play with? And just give it a shot. And I think this is like, if you're learning or you don't know what a library is doing, or you're feeling kind of lazy about it, just describe what you want to do and see if Genai can help you get to something a lot quicker. I'm gonna get some water real quick.
So on average, kind of when you use data, how do you think it performs? Like did you have to wait like 3 suggestions to be able to fix the code? Like you showed an example here when, it was able to do it like with 1 suggestion only. What do you feel like it's your experience with it?
Oh, for like how much I've had to suggest it?
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, the worst part, and I think this is also because I don't always know the matplotlib syntax. I have gotten it into a state where, like when I've done exactly this example before, if I tried to make a plot a time series, it would plot all of the dates in the X labels, and it was just one big mess. And I couldn't convince it to like group them or to like stick those on the y-axis instead. And I was like trying to get ChatGPT to like understand that much. I was like, I feel like there's more for us to do for prompting, but also to like help the user that's prompting. And maybe it's worth like going behind the scenes a little bit. We can go and look at like what is the prompt that we're actually sending to Gen AI, and like how are we getting there?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Were there other questions though before I dive to that?
Now, we just had a couple of nice comments about people wanted to give it a try, but I think it would be great to show a bit behind the scene about if you have another example to show why that implementation is actually a bit safer than blindly asking ChatGPT to generate code without a lot of context.
Yeah. So let's look at this, because the real power here is IPython itself, because IPython has context. Let's see, which one are we going to go with first? So I'll look at this context here.
So this repo is completely open source, right? People can just fork it.
Yeah, so people can go to github.com/notable-io/genai, GENAI. Okay. So if we want to get the historical context of what a user has been doing recently, what their last messages are, by default, we're using this function where we're looking back at the last 5 messages. And IPython has a history manager. So this isn't using your code cell per se. This is actually why it works in IPython console too. You can do the exact same setup in the IPython console and get back the same results. And basically, we just look over your inputs and your outputs and line them up, and then try to go through like what are all the inputs we want to look through, and then we put a few things in to make sure to skip. Like if you want to have something ignored and for it to not get sent on as context, you can include this. And then your assist messages are not sent back again. I noticed if you leave the assist messages in, it thinks that that's just part of your code in general. It doesn't know what that means. And so it thinks that it needs to send you back assists sometimes as if that's part of your script. And then the way that we craft the output messages, and this is really important, I think, for getting data framework. The reason we're getting this like rich stuff back is that it's actually getting sent as Markdown to ChatGPT. It understands text really well, and the default Markdown table is really good for it. Like we could send it a JSON table or HTML table, but thus far with GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT, with the chat models, the Markdown works really well. And so we're basically just sampling the data. So we sample the number of columns, and you're limited by how much data you can actually send to GPT to get a response back.
And you've, in terms of model, there was the GPT-4 yesterday, and during the live stream, Greg, the co-founder, even used that as an example in the middle of the live stream of passing the error of the Jupyter notebook into GPT-4.
Which is great. I was like, oh, we're doing that. We're going to watch that today.
Well, if people say, "Oh, can I use that with GPT-4?" What's the kind of the topic around the type of model or API you can use?
Okay, so I mean, like the biggest concern for me, I'm just going to pull up another page, is the pricing. I mean,
yeah,
like,
that's usually important for people, right?
The really important piece here is it is less than a cent. It's like 0.2 cents, right? $0.002 compared to a little over 10 times as much for GPT-4. Now, like my account, I'm only going to spend like probably $2 a month And I was trying to fine tune models before, and I was getting decent success trying to do that. But this new chat completions endpoint is enough that I can send the context of what's going on as a separate message, and then get the and then get that other feedback coming in. So I was like trying to read a question while I was talking. But yeah, it's this this is like the big piece to me. And at least for exceptions, like I don't think I needed to go to GPT-4. Like thus far, the responses have been very good. It responds back really quickly. And then it's pretty cheap. So I mean, I'm excited. I think the great thing out of GPT-4 is you could send it a lot more data. So if you have a larger data model, or maybe you've got something with a lot of columns, your schema, like it could make sense to switch models. There's nothing stopping Genai from switching models kind of on the fly. But for the moment, GPT 3.5 Turbo is great.
Awesome. We had a question about if that's, if I can use Genai, the package, only for Jupyter Notebooks, or someone's asking if they can use them in, .py script by VS Code, for example.
That's a really good question. We should talk to Microsofties about that. I mean, like it is using IPython context, but there's nothing stopping you from using the exact same prompt that we're using, and the same kind of style of how we're doing our the types of context that you send. I did see another open source package though that was called GPT Pi. So like if your Python script fails to run, you send it through GPT Pi after.
Do you want maybe to share the screen where in the repo you define the prompt and then it's configured? So
yeah,
if ever they want to see under the hood and how they could do it manually without a package at the first place.
Yeah. And can I make this wrap? Yeah, it's close enough. So when we're using the assist magic, it's this prompt here, which is, as a coding assistant, your task is to help users write code in Python with Jupyter Notebooks, provide comments in code for the user to read and edit, ensuring it can be run successfully. The user will be able to run the code in the cell and see the output. It's a couple notes about what made this improve over time. Well, that's interesting. I just realized it no longer says, oh, this one's different. Yeah, that's right. If you tell it that to ensure that it can be run successfully, it's like it gets just a little bit better. It's kind of like the other like dirty trick people have found out of saying like, make sure to follow steps, like think step by step, and it like causes it to reason a certain way. And then the error one, as a coding assistant, you'll diagnose errors in the Python code written in a Jupyter Notebook. Format your response using Markdown, making sure to include the language around code blocks like tick 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 Python hash code tick tick tick. Provide concise code examples in your response, which will be rendered in Markdown in the notebook. The user will not be able to respond to your response. I actually added this last part because of a bug that you found, Pierre, where ChatGPT was like, "Do you want me to do that for you?" I'm just like, I can't. How do I say yes? I want to say
how do
yes.
I say yes? How do I say yes in a notebook ID, right?
So I added this so that it would stop. Like it should just be like, this is the end. Like stop responding. Just give it. And then it was really useful to tell it to render Markdown. It's almost like the style changed. If you told it you wanted Markdown, it's like it's been trained on enough readmes and everything else.
So what was if we go back maybe to a bit away from the repo, go back to an example.
Yeah.
What was the most kind of impressive example for you? Who knows Python pretty well. You've been doing that for like decades now. So what was the most impressive kind of example for you?
I mean, honestly, I am so eager to like figure out how we can convey context of like a data frame or a schema. Like we're right on like more of a cusp of like being able to ask natural language questions. So like when I worked at Netflix, like the chief problem that we wanted to solve was like anybody on their first day should be able to go like, how many people watched Abstract last night? And like, we're close to just being able to do that. If some analyst wants to know that, you could just write that question. Like, we're really, really close. And it's a big portion of that behind the scenes is doing the data engineering piece. It's about creating a data catalog. It's about making sure that everybody's contributing, not just like really great tables for folks to work with, but also that you're providing descriptions of what all of those columns mean, and that you have, kind of a whole corpus of notebooks and Tableau reports and everything else that can share that, which is not really about Python. It's not that piece. It's just that, like, we're really close to this, like, I can write natural language and then get back something, given that I've given the context of what's in the notebook, I can get to the next thing. And I think probably the other big aha is I hate the Google Sheets API. Like, I don't like it. And one of the other engineers on the team, so she's a front-end engineer, but it clearly can do lots of Python too. And she was like whipping up stuff with the Google Sheets API and was allowing assist and the exception stuff to like help get through it. And I was like, wow, if I had this, I probably wouldn't have, like, I usually just don't want to touch the Google Sheets API. But knowing that you can make mistakes and not have to go read all the API docs is a little bit liberating, because you don't have to worry about it. It's just like, just try. I mean, like, hopefully you're not doing something catastrophic. It's just that, like, there's just a little bit more interaction. Like, the whole thing that brought me to interactive computing was just that, like, it's kind of like you're doing this engagement with the computer. You have this engagement with the runtime, with the kernel. And now we have, like, an additional assistant to help you, like, kind of reason with that computer and figure things out. And I think what I didn't show a moment ago here, let's go back to this real quick. So the new chat completions endpoint out of OpenAI has 3 roles. That's system, user, and assistant. And so the way that I started to structure things with this is to take our original prompt, the original, what I call the proclamation here, I set that as a system role. So it's like a narrator saying, here's the context of your conversation between the user and the assistant. And then I provided, like, big context, which is basically in and out for any IPython person. That's what we're talking about for it. And let's see, I might need to look at where this gets used again. So let's go back to that one. So this is going to get sent in cell texts. So we're going to generate cell text, generate next cell, context, cell text, stream false. So it's got, like, the raw stuff. Oh, I looked at the wrong one, didn't I? Oh, that's funny. Context. I looked at the wrong piece. Oh, it's right there. Okay, it's context here. Get historical context. This one. Okay, yeah, so this is the one I showed earlier. So when it sets that up and it's setting it up, every single output comes in as role system, and it's always the user's code with role user, the output with role system. So it's like literally just repeating the notebook log back to GPT to say, this is what was run in that interpreter. And then the users run a final thing, and the assistant goes, oh, what do I need to respond back with next?
And so, what do you feel like people speak a lot about ChatGPT and feedback loop and improvements? Like, is there a way to, how do you feel like the service can improve over time? Is it going to improve just because instead of using ChatGPT, you're going to use GPT-4? And I know it's more expensive, but either way, that if people use that package internally in their own organization, company, with their own Jupyter log locally, or even us, with at Notable, how can we create our own database or logic to make it better on top of the API itself? Is there a way to do that, or what are you thinking there?
I mean, like the ways that I'm looking at it is that I think we can have more, at least for how ChatGPT works, as this like really great budget tier. I'm gonna call it, at least. Like I don't need to upload legal documents. It's gonna be like I'm gonna send a unique prompt for the use case that I'm working with. And I think everybody there, you see a lot of like everybody's just plugging in an assistant. Oh, we're going to put an assistant in our app and like ship it. And in this case, it's more like, okay, we should have an assistant that's tied to exceptions. And then we're like, okay, wait, what if the assistant knows and understands how to generate context for module not found error? Right? Like we all know how to solve these problems. Like, oh, I didn't install the package, or I had a typo or whatever. But sometimes you're looking at it, you're like, what's wrong with this? I typed Levenstein just fine. And instead it can be like, you didn't type this right. This is not what it is. And we can send context of here's the packages that are installed, here's the versions that are installed, and like bundle that together. And the same thing kind of for each one, you can have a prompt that's more situated toward that. I don't know if I want to call it a problem space, because it's just like these are all just exceptions. We're all used to getting tracebacks. But I think as you start to specialize the prompts, and you could even specialize for the user, like I actually started, I was like, maybe I'll make a notebook for folks here.
So
right?
Yeah, we have 2 minutes left. So I think, time flies. So I think one more question about if people want to compare that to, you say, I can use Copilot, but GitHub and all that jazz does way more. For example, who can suggest code, when I'm in MID. What do you think is the use case for this versus using a Copilot that actually maybe does more, but in a different way, maybe another tool as well?
I mean, I use Copilot every day, so it's not
Use
like
Copilot every
I
day
mean,
as
like
well?
the way that I'm looking at these use cases, because I think the reality is like we could start to bring in the same like code completion kind of aspect here, but like the area that we need to innovate in as like notebook folks is to give context of the runtime. Like what is the data people are working with? What are the libraries that are working with? Like what is happening in real time, like live with them?
Yeah, because that's really the power of notebook in itself, right? It's the REPL environment. It's really the building blocks versus working in an IDE. That makes sense. Is there anything you want to share before we close?
Oh no, I was gonna do a little play with a response, like with the chat completion thing, but time flew by.
Sounds good. Yeah, we can do another live stream in the future. So if you want to get started, you can just go to GitHub notable.io. The repo is called Genai, and it's super easy to install, like any packages. You can go use your own secret that you create. Kyle is showing it on the screen. So you go to the OpenAI if you already have an account. Like Kyle said, it's very cheap because we use the GPT-3 Turbo model, which is barely a couple of cents per 1,000 token. So that should cost you.
I guess I could have shown people like the main thing you have to have is this OpenAI _API _key set as one of your environment variables. So in Notable, you just add a secret and put in, we already have it here, and I had another one, and I'll say it's OpenAPI key 2 value. Oh, that's funny. I think I just showed mine. And then click to create,
and then use it as an.
And then it'll ask you to restart, because like if you did it and you didn't have the secret, it would do it. So I'll restart this one just for fun. That's it. That's the
setup. It's pretty easy. Pip install and just store your secret as an environment variable, and you are ready to go. Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks a lot. And if you have any more questions, you can reach out to us, contact at notable.io, or just submit an issue or a suggestion on the repo as well. Ask start a discussion. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.